Hey everybody, Tom Barnes here. Stories from the 78 in the Avondale neighborhood. Right off of Belmont and Kimball, you have the Belmont Tavern. It's been sitting in this spot since 1940. That's a year before America was in World War II, to give you some perspective. Opened up in 1940 as a spot for a lot of factory workers in this neighborhood, and also the workers that built the Kennedy. You're seeing it right there. This bar was here before the highway was here. This was all factories and blue collar workers, and they needed a place to go and have a bite to eat, a beer and a shot, and be on their way. That's the origins of the Belmont Tavern. I'm going to talk to Nick, who reopened this bar after sitting dormant for like 25 years, is now a fine cocktail bar, and they still serve old style. Let's go inside and hear the story for this story from the 78. Nick, man, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Just been absolute craziness trying to open a bar. So
February 27th, you guys opened up, so just under a month.
Yep.
But you survived already one big holiday-ish, right, with St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, and with all that's going on and being open 7 days a week, I totally forgot that it was St. Patrick's Day. So it was Zach back there and I behind the bar, and people were lined up in green outside, and it's not really exactly our vibe, the St. Patrick's Day thing, but the first couple hours was like 9 people strolled in, 8 people, 6 people, 9 people, all in green, and so we had a moment of like, all right, we're doing this. But
didn't schedule it for it, but
yeah,
we're doing it. We're handling it.
Poor planning on my part. You know, one day I'll get one of these things called a calendar and put that together and actually know when things are going to happen.
They're overrated.
Agreed. I'm still analog too, where I've got a dry erase calendar on my fridge, but that still reads January. So
that's my vibe too. But you said you're analog, old school, and that is kind of this bar, right? I mean, analog, even down to like, you got vintage speakers up on the wall. You have this amazing, incredible, beautiful old Polish, did we call it dive bar?
I mean,
it was just a Polish bar back in the day?
It was a Polish bar back in the day. It was, I think very much if you were drinking at the old bar, that it would definitely be considered a dive bar. You know, basically the history of it is, you know, they were open for 60 years as Belmont Tavern, serving the, you know, mostly blue collar community. You know, the workers that put in the Kennedy, so the construction workers would come here, and catty corner from us used to be the IS Berlin Press building for 30 years, and they would run 3 shifts. So it would constantly be open, serve the shift. Once everybody was good and drunk and left, the owners would, you know, go upstairs, take a nap for a couple hours, and then open for the next shift for when they let out. And just, they'd cash people's checks and keep the change, and then everybody would spend half their money at the bar on smokes and beers and shots, and go home and do it all again the next day.
God, that's like vintage Chicago if I've ever heard of it.
Very much so, very much so.
So, and the family bought the building in 1937, is that correct? And then they opened the bar in 1940, the year before America decided to join World War II, or was forced to join World War II, I should say. But with that, a lot of history, and you mentioned some of it now, which is just incredible Chicago history, right? You know, you have the working class neighborhood and the family that owned it. And was it started by the family or the children of the family that owned the building?
So the building itself was built in 1890, and it originally opened as a saloon, grocery store, and butcher shop. So that's my joke, is Whole Foods isn't fucking original at all.
No.
You know, that used to be what you did back in the day. Is like,
absolutely,
your one-stop shop, and you might as well have a few pints before you know, back then, hopping on your horse and going back out to the farm.
Absolutely.
So it changed hands quite a bit from 1890 through 1930. Basically, the parents had been running a restaurant, and then eventually their 2 sons opened it as Belmont Tavern after they bought the building in 37, and so sometime around there. And just ran it as a bar that they had a restaurant in back, and so the parents, until the parents or the sons mother passed away, she would just come down and pretty much make whatever she wanted. And there was a pass-through window back there, and so it was like, well, what's cooking for today? And that was it. This is what you got. So it was really fun. A lot of history to the building, and right around 91 is when the one son Mitchell decided to when you're doing it for 50 years and on your feet, this job is pretty taxing. So he would basically, there's still buzzers behind the bar that were for the front door. So he operated a little bit as like a key club to where if he wanted to open, he'd buzz you in, and up until he passed in 2000. And then the building sat dormant for 25 years. It was owned by their younger sister, who didn't want to do anything with the bar, and so this was essentially a storage space, just sitting around collecting dust, until she passed, left it to her caregivers, and they sold the building. And me, I just lived down the street, and used to, since I moved to the city in '04, used to drunkenly go to Belmont Snack Shop, which was next, the 24-hour diner that was next door, RIP. Since that burned down in late 2020. But I always noticed, these like iconic blue windows with the old style sign and Belmont Tavern, and the shades were always drawn, and I always wondered, what is this place? Is it opening? Is it closing? And that was again back in '04. So flash forward, 21 or so years later, friend of mine, there was a for lease sign up on the windows, and a friend of mine was like, well, it's free to do a walkthrough. And I walked in and immediately was like, oh shit, I'm opening a bar. It basically looked very similar to what it looks like now. So they had done a lot of the demo prior to me doing a walkthrough of the space. But in here, they had probably done a renovation of the place in like mid to late 60s. So there was a drop ceiling over this beautiful copper colored tin ceiling.
Never get that. That happens in every bar that like goes into an old spot or restaurant, and they find these old tin ceilings. They just must have not been cool at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it was like you wanted to transfer over to the modern. You're coming out of the the nuclear family sort of vibe, and you're thinking technology and modern design and stuff like that, and the old school tin was not the thing anymore. So they had a drop ceiling in here, which we left the tin as is. But we also, when they put the drop ceiling in, they only painted this green color up to the drop ceiling. So when they pulled it down, we were able to color match the red maroonish color that was there before, because the colors just looked so beautiful together. Then there was like linoleum on the floor, and we peeled that up to get these maple hardwood floors that are literally tacked into the joists because there's no subfloor and there was nothing to adhere to, so every board is just pounded into the joist with these gnarly looking brass spikes. The bar was here, the back bar was here, and so I immediately just fell in love with the vibe of the place, and just the feeling that I got as soon as I walked in here. So.
Yeah, when you think of like vintage Chicago bars, not even dive bar, but just vintage Chicago bars, like growing up as a kid, I'm from the city, right? So growing up, your uncle would take you to the bar because he wanted to get a couple drinks at the neighborhood bar. Yeah. This is what the bars look like. Yeah. Maybe a couple more neon signs as the 80s progressed, know, or a couple of 85 Bears posters, and maybe some wood paneling somewhere. But the back bar specifically, and this bar, even what's this, Formica?
Formica.
This is very much like what I remember growing up. And you have blended the old with the updated new, and also the reclaimed things that you found. I was reading an article that you had in Block Club where it talked about that you're not a person that likes to go out shopping, but to go out and find some, cool things at thrift shops or vintage sales or what have you to match what you already have going on here. Kind of worked out because you have like church pews, and then you have these awesome chairs. I mean, everything kind of vibes in here, man.
Yeah, and it's all like everything is through the decades, right? You know, nothing. I didn't pick a specific, you know, time period that I wanted to bring this back to. I wanted to sort of embrace the eclecticness of the space and honor its history from the very beginning, and being a saloon pre-prohibition. So honoring all those little things and really kind of bringing them together. You know, one of my favorite things to do was to source all these light fixtures, and you know, some of them are old oil lamps that have been converted. Some of them are, you know, pendants that, like, I found one of them at the end of the bar I fashioned together from different parts that I found. You know, there's sort of a broad span of decades, because it's I think everything in here is unique and fun and old, and even though, you know, when you kind of look at it all together, you're kind of like, you know, technically all of these things clash, but I think for the way the space is and sort of the vibe that we're going for is to kind of pinpoint these moments in every single aspect of the design, and be like, wow, you know, like for me, I have a different favorite light fixture every time. I've got a different favorite chair every time that I look at things, and we're still filling out the space with different things, but you know, it's always that, you know, when I'm putting a box for, you know, things like, what's the saying? I don't know. There's a saying about innovation comes from, what is that?
Expression, exploration.
I don't know what it is. I can't remember.
I'll put it in the edit.
I'll
put the
just,
if I can find it. We had 11 minutes in. I'll figure it out.
It'll come to me later. I'll just be like, oh yeah, that. But yeah.
But you kind of finding your way of what you like for your bar by finding the things that match this bar. So all the things that mismatch all kind of match, though, in the end, with the vibe of this place, which I personally think it's awesome, man. I mean, especially the repurpose. I know you had something in here from a church in Logan, an Irish church from like the south side of the city, even something with Michael Jordan.
Yeah, so we got church pews from the old Fourth Congregational Church in Logan Square, that they're turning into condos, I think, and nobody knows what to do with pews, so we picked up a bunch and made the banquettes, and
It's actually kind of fitting that church pews are turned into bar.
Yeah, you know, it's
they were all thinking it while they're in church.
They're cheap and easy, and you know, instead of spending thousands of dollars to do a custom banquette, you know, the motto that I had with this was, I wanted this place when people came in, I wanted it to feel lived in, and so yeah, what better than some old church pews, and way to give things character and stuff like that. So we also were able to fashion tables out of the seats of the church pews, because I had a bunch of extras and wanted some smaller tables because we're, you know, just a bar, and cut them up, glued them together, slapped a base on them, and you know, now those are our tables.
But even the base has character.
Oh, for sure.
Looking at them right now. So
yeah,
lots of little nods to Chicago's past, if you will, just from things that have been reclaimed. And you have been in the industry as far as the restaurant industry. You worked at Longman and Eagle and other places along the way, coming to Chicago in 2004. So what is one thing, when you've worked at some high-profile places, to go on your own, you know, what you want to do with the bar? Because there's a lot of things. You could serve food, you could not serve food, and you decided old style only and 26 rotating cocktails, right?
So it's
on a monthly basis or something.
So we're gonna keep. So basically, my approach to the cocktail menu was, you know, I've got a cocktail background. I wrote a book about the history of tonic water with 60 original cocktails, and a lot of the cocktails that I've developed, you know, over the years, didn't necessarily get a bunch of play, if you will, and so I took sort of a cross section of the best things that we had, or that I had created over the years, and put them on the menu, and that way I can teach my philosophy. We can establish what type of cocktail bar we are, and then, you know, be able to take that roadmap, give it to my employees, and have them start creating cocktails for the next menu in that same style.
Got it.
So
almost like not like a school, but kind of like an apprenticeship, be able to do an experiment using different things, go beyond what they know, to push themselves to innovate different cocktails that are with not as commonly used ingredients.
Yeah, but a straightforward approach. So not, like we have techniques, but we're not using all the modern techniques and, not doing that. We're trying to keep really delicious cocktails, simple, balanced, and focus on, creating a joyful experience in the glass. And when I'm, playing the hits, I'm like, I know these cocktails are delicious because I've been doing them for, years, and the feedback has been great. And so it's really, keeping them, at $12 as well. Like, I think people are longing for that approach to a cocktail menu where, let's say you go downtown to some fancy, cocktail bar and you're paying 17, 18, 19, 20 bucks for a cocktail, and when you actually get it, it might not even be that good.
No, or it's all ice.
Yeah.
Or
so,
no alcohol at all.
Yeah. So using quality ingredients at affordable prices, but taking those and transforming them into something absolutely delicious. So
No bullshit is what you're saying.
No bullshit. So
I like it, and that matches the vibe when you walk into this place. I mean, it's just. I don't know, it's so Chicago. I love it. I've only been in here for like 20 minutes, but I already get what you're trying to do without even knowing you very well. But then you also have an old school homage to Chicago with just old style on tap with, and I shouldn't say just, but old style on tap for the beer.
Yeah, we matched these kind of iconic blue windows that people have been passing by for a long time, and so they already had the old style sign in the windows, so we had to recreate the storefront, and I wanted to get it painted the same way that it was, because that's how people have been walking by it for 40, 50 years. We were able to save the original front door and color match everything, so I figured let's keep old style on there, and let's just do old style on tap for $3 and have a good time doing it.
Yeah, I imagine you can have a good time with $3 old style, and then you have the $12 cocktails. Yep. People can hang out for a little while and enjoy themselves.
Yeah, that's the idea. Good vibes, relaxed. That's what we want. We want good cocktails, good times, and not a price that's gonna kill everybody.
And you mentioned you guys are open 7 days a week?
Yep, we're open from 3 p.m. till 1 a.m. 7 days a week.
And what's the music vibe in here? That's my last question.
Eclectic. Yeah, we just kind of we pick something that sort of matches the vibe and let it play. And as soon as the vibe changes, we change the music. And we haven't had any complaints so far, so we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing.
And you're here most of the time as being a new owner of a bar. I imagine you have to be here more than you probably care to be, but it's your baby, you got to kind of take care of it.
I'm here all the time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get away a little bit and get some rest, but I'll be slinging drinks and hanging out and drinking with everybody on this side of the bar too.
Awesome.
So.
Well, and again, I love the homage to New Beginnings with the rabbit that you have, which is New Beginnings, also homage to just the abundance of rabbits we have all over the city, right? But it's good luck, new beginnings, all that.
And then, in the background there, that's my childhood stuffed animal. That's Spike, my stuffed rabbit. And so, so let me open the door real quick.
Yeah, no, go ahead. You're opening up, so I'm just
things to do.
Yeah, right before they're opening.
Hi.
Hi, buddy. You got a fancy elf.
Oh, sweet, nice, cool.
We're just shooting a segment. Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
I'll be with you in a minute.
Okay.
All right, Nick. Well, you know what? We're good. Enjoy your
Sweet.
beer. Enjoy. You guys just open up?
We open at 3. I have no idea what time it is, but
it's 2 o'clock.
It's 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm doing a tequila tasting with some people, and
fantastic. Well, you get
constantly doing something.
Awesome.
So.
Well, thanks again, man. Congratulations to you.
Appreciate it.
That is the story from the 78 from the Belmont Tavern here in the Avondale neighborhood, Tom Barnes, Chicago, at gmail.com if you have a story from the 78, or hit me up at the website storiesfromthe78.com. See you guys later.